Hi. Well, this is unexpected. I'm doing a cooking segment. Why is that unexpected? Because I don't cook. In our house, Nasty does all the cooking, and I mean all of the cooking, with the exception of about 3 things. I make egg and cheese sandwiches on English muffins, I chop up the ingredients to make Caucasian people tacos, and I make my grandmother's Irish potato cake recipe that I'm going to make for you today. Right? Right. This is the ultimate in comfort food if you are a member of my family, and possibly your family too. The recipe's a little bit tweaked from our recipe. It was written on an ancient index card. I've increased the portions because I think my mom did too, because she had 11 people to feed on a regular weekday. So here we go. We're going to start with equal parts flour and mashed potatoes. Okay. We're going to start with the flour. Pretty generic flour. We're doing 2 cups of flour. Boom. Pre-measured out so I can do that cooking show thing. Right there. And then it's 3 teaspoons of baking powder. Not baking soda, baking powder. Very important. The original recipe, which I've seen, calls for sifting all of this, but it's the 20th century. Also, our kitchen is small, and we don't have things. So I'm just going to whisk it a little bit, make sure the baking powder is evenly distributed in the flour. Thusly. By the way, this recipe is heavy in flour, and I decided to wear all black today, so that's hilarious. So 2 cups of flour, 2 cups of mashed potatoes. These are mashed potatoes I made last night. I made a giant portion because I'm Irish, and there's a leftover amount, which is also giant because Irish. My mashed potato recipe has tons of butter in it and salt and pepper. So we already have salt and pepper and butter in the recipe by virtue of the mashed potatoes. So you're gonna put that in. You're gonna want to put that in the flour, thusly, and then the recipe calls for adding milk to create a soft ball. Again, I love old-timey recipes because I never quite know what they mean. We're gonna do that. So this is gonna take a while. We're gonna do a little time-lapse thing, I bet. I should have mentioned this is gooey as all get out. What I probably should have done is floured my hands before I started mixing this up. Or about halfway through, I guess. It starts being flour, you add the liquid to it, it starts getting sticky. So you stop, and you can sort of flour your hands up a little bit, and that'll help everything not stick. Okay, so then eventually it's a little like bread, you end up with a ball, and I added a little more flour too to soften everything. We don't have a big cutting board, so I put a little wax paper down. Just flour that out. Oops, it's torn. That's okay. Boom. Soft ball, as described. Also, probably a good idea, possibly even before you start doing this part, you want to put a pan on. It's got a medium heat, just a hot pan. So my siblings will insist that this is supposed to be done with a cast iron pan. I can't be bothered with the cast iron thing. I've owned a lot over the years. Like I mentioned, I don't cook. So all I end up doing is moving them from apartment to apartment, and they're very heavy. So yes, technically cast iron pan, but if you're not part of that cast iron pan life, just a pan. No oil or anything, it's a dry pan. That's part of the cooking experience. It's a baked thing sort of on the stovetop. Okay, what we end up with is we flatten the ball out, and you got like a disc. And again, flour's your best friend with this whole thing. Very floury all over the place. And we're gonna segment this. This is about 3/4 of an inch thick, somewhere around there. And we're just gonna segment it with a regular table knife, nothing too sharp. Now, this is not a fried dish. This is not potato pancake, which is often my dog is barking. They're vacuuming in the hall, and Archie hates that. Archie hates most things. Okay, there we go. So each individual slice also gets floured. Love the flour, the Irish. So what kind of meal is this, by the way? In my household, this was both a dinner food, like my mom would do corned beef and cabbage and also have these sort of in lieu of bread. But this is also a breakfast food. And I think that comes from the idea of sort of the Irish as poor people. Like, food was food. I don't think you necessarily had breakfast foods and dinner foods. You had what you had. Potato and flour, obviously cheap ingredients. And like I said, it's sort of hearty and absolutely delicious, and not that good for you once we get to the butter phase. You'll see. Flour. Okay, so we have floured the sides, individual slices. We're going to throw them in the pan. Like again, this is an old recipe, an old family recipe, so there is not a temperature setting. It just has a hot pan. So I'm going to go with a medium, medium-high sort of thing. And again, one of my siblings might tell you differently. I'm doing all the way around so you can see me. It's my cooking show technique, making sure you can see the talent. So I'm putting them back in the pan, you know, sort of like a pizza. Now again, the original index card says sort of 10 minutes on each side, but this is more of an eyeball thing. So they're all doughy and off-white at the moment. We're gonna look for a sort of a golden brown crust. We want them to stay sort of soft in the middle and with a crust on either side, like bread. And you'll see, I'll show you in a minute. So we'll let these guys cook for a little bit. We're just gonna sort of peek up on the edges of each one and wait till we get to that golden thing. So you'll start to get this smoky thing. That's the flour cooking, burning, little wisps of smoke. And you'll be able to smell it a little bit. So we're gonna, but I've been peeking them up a little bit while we were off camera. And we're going to, look at that. That's what we're going for. It's sort of a browny, goldeny crust. Still mashed potato and floury in the middle, but you know, you got that side. So we're gonna flip all these guys over. Again, I'm sure I have sisters and brothers who cook, and I know I'm doing some of this wrong, but at the end of the day, the mixture's right, the food's right, and these are gonna be fantastic. Okay. And we let those go too. If you feel the sides are sticking together, you can go back in with a little bit of flour and rub them on the sides there. So these are about done because I'm getting a sense at the underside. There you go. Looks like the top side. Turn off the heat. If your family has a recipe like this, if you're of Irish descent or you're Irish and you made something similar, please let me know. I did a little Google research and I did not find these to be common. And not everyone I mentioned them to knows what I'm talking about. I did find a site where somebody made them in their family as individual cakes instead of one that was segmented. But I'd love to know. In my family, these were common. You know, we made these a lot. They were always a special treat, but we had them a lot. And I'd love to know if you had something similar. Okay, we're gonna eat these now. Okay, so this is how you eat them. You take one, regular knife, and you're gonna split them down the middle. Because they're still mashed potato-y in the middle, that knife's gonna get all gummy. That's okay, that's just how it is. It's part of the tactile experience. And you get like an open-faced dealie like that. Now, when there's not a pandemic going on, get like a Kerrygold butter or one of those high-end fancy butters. Unfortunately, because there's a run on everything, we're doing Land of Lakes today. Not ideal, but you know, we make do. Not a health food, so you know, as much butter as you feel that you can, you know, live with. I think at this point, if you're going to switch to like margarine or something, this isn't for you. You just have a piece of fruit. We'll see you later. And then some salt. I've been doing a thing recently. It's not how we grew up, but I'll just take like a pinch of, you know, like a kosher salt. You know, like when you're doing salt and chocolate or something, and I'll just run it across the top like that. And now, some extra salt. We'll put that for later. Absolute pleasure, family history, memories of Mom and Graham, and the best damn thing I've ever eaten. Enjoy. That's damn good.